Yeah, we are live on YouTube. Hey guys.
Hey everyone. What are we talking about today?
Oh, I don't know. Some unhinged stuff.
I think gurus.
Gurus. Some unhinged gurus. Admittedly, one of my favorite Instagram creators or series on Instagram, I can't even name the creator, which is crazy. I should probably look that up. Is the guy who is doing like unhinged things an AI CEO has said every single day. So I think the AI CEOs, we expect, it's almost like we expect a certain level of crazy from these guys. But,
Yeah.
we've seen some folks that never used to be quite that unhinged kind of start going off in a really interesting direction.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're going to talk about today.
We've seen some crazy. I just think the names all get in trouble at some point for something, right?
Sure.
And I think a lot of it has to do with they just always have microphones in their face too. It's like I don't know if they do any actual real work anymore, like Grant Cardone or Gary V.
Something happens with these guys, Mike, and we've seen, lesser known people, when their platforms sort of explode, when a few videos go viral, the pressure to get to those numbers again, to keep folks engaged, to get the views, to get the clicks, to get the likes, right? You start doing things for like chasing that engagement, right? Like I feel like we've seen it. Somebody will start like super authentic, Gary V was like one of my favorites for years. Mildly, he's responsible for the hustle culture. So there's that. But I always felt like he was quote unquote different than other CEOs because he was so open about things, and he cusses and he talk like he's not in a suit. He just kind of had this like regular dude vibe about him for years, right? And then something sort of has shifted in the last couple of years or so where, of course he is known for being Gary V now as the personality, right? Like some 5, 6, 10 years ago, he was more known for like companies he was investing in, like Snapchat and, all these different things. And so he's just sort of become like, it's almost like he's become a caricature of himself now. And he's been posting some really weird stuff over the last few weeks and months, really. I mean, it kind of shifted. Like he had some content about like parenting last year that he really leaned into, which was odd. I don't know that I want to take parenting advice from Gary V. Not even sure if he sees his children. That's a terrible thing to say, but he never, I don't know nothing about Gary V, who works 20 hours a day, tells me that I should be taking parenting advice from Gary V.
Right.
Like, no.
And I don't know.
It's gotten so like,
you might be a good parent or not. I don't know. But that's the thing is like, some of these guys like, hey man, you did something in e-commerce. So, I mean, you're not an expert in everything then, right. You do marketing
what really sparked
and social media stuff. Like,
yeah.
Well, Gary, what do you think about how should I raise my kids? Oh, well, here's what you need to be doing. Like, why am I asking you?
Have a wife who does it.
And I'm not saying he's a bad parent or anything. It's just not his lane.
No, not of course not. But but here's the thing though too, and he's been notoriously, he's done this really well for the most part, is he's kept his private life private, right? Although his dad was in business with him and his brother, and that's public knowledge, and now he's married to another influencer, so that's public knowledge, right? But very little is known about his ex-wife and his children. So I'm not, like you said, Mike, like, great, I want to take business advice from Gary, but I don't necessarily need to take all of my life advice from Gary, right? And he's been like, today we kind of sparked this conversation between the two of us because he's posted something on LinkedIn that talked about how you're not doing long enough prompts to your AI. And he asked the audience on LinkedIn to say, like, give me your longest prompt, right? And this is on the tail of, like, I had called out to you last week, how he posted on Threads and said, and let me quote this so I don't mess it up. But he said, admiration is a lot more exciting than a couple extra zeros in your bank account. And the comments were all overwhelmingly like, admiration doesn't pay my bills, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't ensure, people were saying, like, it doesn't ensure we aren't homeless. You're starting, somebody said, if you're starting at $1 million, sure, right? And it says, other people were like, you're not reading the room, Gary. Like, you've literally become so out of touch of what real people, real average, hardworking folks are experiencing every day, right? Because you've reached a certain level of success. You have no idea, like, you're so out of touch. You have no idea what the reality is like for people. I mean, he's come out, Mike, and he's made a comment about, oh, if you're an entrepreneur and you're complaining about today's market, you're not a real entrepreneur, right? So really, does Gary need to tell me that I'm not an entrepreneur or anybody else? Right. It's just such an odd pivot for him, because he used to be, at least I read from the start, like Jab, 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 Hook, like was one of his, that was, I think, his first book, which I really loved and thought it was great. It's just this strange pivot. Like, you are completely delusional now. Like, what are you even talking about? I don't want an admiration. I want to pay my rent. Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
it's hard.
A weird pivot.
I had fallen, like, when I was a big fancy CMO with a huge budget and stuff, and people used to ask me for my opinion all the time, and everybody thought I was the smartest and the best. Like, even I back then started to fall into that trap. And you realize it when you're not that role anymore and you're not that cool, and all of a sudden it's all gone. And it was really hard. Yeah. It was a really hard adjustment, like, when that went away. And it's like, well, I'm still the same. I'm still exactly the same as I was. But now all of a sudden I'm dumb, and nobody wants to hear from me. Nobody thinks, yeah, I didn't, So I get it how, like, when they're in that spotlight, it's like celebrities too, right? They start getting crazy because it's really hard. It's a rare person, I think, that can take that kind of adulation and love for year after year and not be changed.
Right.
So I'm sure that's part of it. I agree. Because Gary doesn't, I mean, if he does any work at all anymore, it's only on a Super Bowl commercial that he's going to drop down to the agency and do anything, but otherwise he's spending most of his time speaking at events because people keep putting microphones in his face and they want to have Gary V at their event.
Right.
And he's got to have a different indoor wool hat on because, that's the thing. He started that affectation, and I can't stand that. I hate that thing, but it's hard to not change, and I get it. This is why, too, like, you start thinking, like, all my opinions, I am brilliant at everything. So this is why I'm going to share, Gary, what do you think about nuclear physics? Should the U.S. open more nuclear reactors for energy? What do you think? What do you think about the green energy movement, Gary? No. Like, what else should Gary pontificate on? And it's just like, and he's just used to talking, and people rarely hold him to account, right? Because I don't know if you remember how hard Gary pushed NFTs.
Oh yeah.
Where's that? And Gary was a crypto guy and NFTs.
Right.
Where you at?
It's just, I think we live in interesting times, though, where, like, I get the point that you're making, Mike, which is that level of fame, recognition, attention, admiration, like, affects you, right? But to me, it's some point, and his biggest thing has always been, like, I don't give a crap who's talking what about me. I don't care what you have to say, if it's negative or critical, I'm just going to tune you out or approach you with kindness or whatever it is, right? Which I'm in favor of that. at some point, I think these folks reach such a level of success, and we've seen this on a smaller level with people that we've known. When you reach a certain level of success and you are surrounded by yes people, right? Then nobody is going to tell you Gary V, because nobody is at your level. There is not a business influencer, I think, that is at Gary's level. There's, Grant Cardone and Alex Hormozi and, Ty Lopez.
Those guys are all in that
group.
sphere.
But he is still, I think Gary is still above those guys, right? Like, and he's been doing it longer. And so you get surrounded by people who are not going to be critical of you, and it's so easy for you to think that everything that you are doing is good for your brand. And I'm getting, like, I used to really be a huge fan of Gary. And I'm getting to a point that if I see his face again, it's like becomes such a punchable face. I don't want to hear you say things like, admiration means more than zeros in my bank account. Yes, to you it does. To 50 million homeless veterans, not so much. Like, stop, just go outside, touch grass, as the kids say. Like, get real about the things that you're saying. We saw a video recently, a few months back, right, from Grant Cardone, who said $400,000 a year salary means that you're broke.
Oh.
You can't support your family on $400,000. Like, you should be embarrassed as a man if that is all you're bringing home. First of all, we're taking masculinity advice on what it means to be a man from Grant Cardone. Like, no, we're not. But also, what do you think the average salary for a person in the U.S. is? It doesn't even come close to $100,000. Nonetheless, no. $400,000.
Let's play a clip here. Let me play Grant.
Yeah.
If I made $400,000 a year, I would be embarrassed with myself as a husband, a father, basically as a human being. You guys haven't done the math, because you cannot live on $400,000 a year. And if you think you can live on $400,000 a year, I might have to go back and add number one. Nothing. Anybody can make $400,000 a year. All you got to do is show up. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. You guys don't need to agree with me. I've already been paid my fee. I am not here to satisfy you. I don't care if you like me or not, man. I want to move a handful of people in the room to go from $400,000 a year to start thinking about, how do I make $4 million? Big boy right over here. What'd you make last year?
I don't care if you agree with me or not.
I don't know if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah, I've already been paid my fee. You don't have to like me. If that is not the most narcissistic, psychotic thing to ever come out of anybody's mouth. And nobody, Mike, $400,000 a year is not even a household income for most average Americans who work, 2 jobs most of the time to pay their bills. It's hard. I've had this thing where I'm like, it's so easy for these guys to say they can accomplish everything. They can hustle. They can work 20 hours a day because they're not doing anything else but working, and hey, props. Like, I don't have a, Vayner media agency behind me, right? Like, that's not, I'm not comparable. I can hold my opinion, but I'm just like, $400,000 a year is being broke. Mm-hmm. It's easy to make. All you have to do is show up. And it literally says nothing. It doesn't give you any advice on how to make the $400,000 by showing up and doing nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that
these
mean
guys,
to show up?
Where's that other guy who's disappeared? And I can't think of his name anymore. The one who says, if you don't have 6-pack abs, you can't work for me.
Oh, yeah, the lunatic who was parading his teenage daughters on stage in front of like 50,000 men.
Yeah.
That was like asking them to lift their shirts.
And I haven't seen him all. It just occurred to me today, and I'm like, I haven't seen that guy in a while. What happened? Did something? I wonder if something happened. Like, I didn't block him on social or anything, but I just haven't seen him.
No.
But like,
I haven't seen him since that whole fiasco. Since
you have to be outrageous or have some kind of a claim if you want to stand out. Why does nobody watch our podcast? Because we're just kind of, we don't make outrageous claims. We're not trying to piss people off. We're just talking.
Right. Yeah.
So nobody wants that. People want the fight. So yeah, they want to see this guy, and he loves it. Grant loves that making that statement because he knows what's going to happen in a video is everyone's going to go on there and call him an idiot for saying that, but he doesn't care because it's engagement.
But that's
gets him seen by more people.
It is engagement.
You know?
And that's what I'm saying, Mike. At some point, I feel like they all pivot to chasing engagement, and they don't stay true to the message, right? And it becomes so it's become so disingenuous, if that's I think that's the right word that I'm looking for, because there's so much nuance and there's so much that goes into being successful, right? And to hear to hear folks like Gary V, and I've sent you a couple of videos recently of him too, where he's just screaming into the microphone.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? What is this personal brand that you've built? You look like a lunatic. And nobody's saying,
what's it take for success for them now, right? So you're like,
nothing, yeah.
99.9% of people hate them, but Grant's 10X conference sells out.
Every time.
All the time, right? And those tickets, $1,000 or more, I think it's up to like 20 grand. I remember somebody saying they paid for VIP where you get like an hour with Grant or something, right? He sells those things out. So if he knows that 99.9% can hate him because he doesn't need to sell that many of those tickets to be successful and be rich. Right. So it's okay if it's only 0.01% of America who likes him and buys it. There are plenty of 22-year-old bros out there who eat that stuff up and will pay, So it's okay. They don't care. They know it's a small audience we're going after, and I need the engagement and rage from everybody else helps me get seen by that tiny little group of people who will pay me. And then I'm using everyone else to get to that group. That's what they're doing.
That's a perfect explanation. And I wish more people would see through it, and it's not necessarily, I am not like all on hating these guys, right? Like when they all started back, 15 years ago, I was, like I said, I was a huge fan of Gary, really liked his message, thought he was a cool guy, liked all the vlogs that he was doing and all his Vine library stuff, right? Same thing with Grant Cardone. I used to listen to Grant Cardone a ton when he was starting to build his real estate business, right? I just think that so much has changed, and their worlds have changed significantly. These are like, average Joes that have come into money. None of them really come from money, I don't think. And so probably can look into that, but none of them had, I don't know who Grant Cardone's parents are and whatnot, but like, I know that, Gary's family owned, a liquor store, right? So they were somewhat successful, but it's not like they came from the level of money that Gary has, right?
Oh, right.
So it's not like these guys have been delusional their whole lives. It's an interesting change when you get to the point when you reach a certain level of success, where then now you're just, you have to fight to stay relevant, and you'll become like outrageously, you'll start saying like outrageously crazy things, like you said, Mike, to get engagement, because that engagement gets, more eyeballs on things, and then more, there's that tiny little 0.5% that is all that Gary or Cardone or Ty Lopez need to spend money on their courses, their events, their whatever,
So they use everyone else is a vehicle for them. So that's why they do it. Right. Hormozy isn't as much of an anger guy, to his credit, I don't think. I never really hear him try to trigger people.
No, he seems pretty chill.
I think he's pretty straightforward. His gimmicky thing though is, he has this get up and he does that thing, right? So he's got a look, and he created a character, which is what these all are too. These are all characters. Right. Although I don't know about Grant. Right. Grant is somebody I have met.
Yep.
So I won't talk about the story because I can't even tell the story, but I have met Grant, and he didn't know who I was, obviously, but at an event with him. And I didn't know who he was at the time. Like, who's this
guy? When you met him, I remember that story.
Friggin' jerk.
My biggest thing with these guys, my biggest turnoff with Grant was not even his jet and his insanity. It's when he started having his 10-year-old give business advice, right? Like these kids that are so insanely privileged. And then, because I am not, listen, nothing, I'm sure his 10-year-old is lovely and smart for her age, except that she's a child and we do not need to use children for content, period. I don't care if it's business related. I don't care that, like we said, that six-pack guy who's Andy something is that dude's name, who paraded his young, his preteen daughters on stage and asked them to lift their shirts up to show their six-packs, which is insanity. Stop using children for content. I can go on a rampage for this. I can get like Gary level angry on that one. But with Grant Cardone, what's really interesting is, he's built this real estate empire, and it's, I used to sit on some of his calls. He has a sales training, right? That he charges thousands of dollars for. I've interacted with a couple of people who have taken his sales training, and there's value in it to some extent. Where I kind of lost respect for Grant Cardone is the Scientology factor, which I don't think gets talked about enough. I think a lot of the things that he does are very harmful. Where he donates his money and what he does is harmful. And nobody calls him out on this.
I know. Why does nobody recognize he's a Scientologist?
But he's very openly Scientologist. He attends Scientology events. He tags, what is his name?
David Miscavige?
No, the other guy.
Who? Tom Cruise?
Created Scientology.
Oh,
Hubbard or whatever.
L. Ron Hubbard?
Yes. He tags him in a lot of his posts. That will show up as a hashtag in a lot of his posts. And so people don't call him out on that, which is weird because I've seen people call out other people in Scientology, just not him. It's kind of like a fringe one-off. The same way a lot of celebrities get called out for being Scientologists, just not John Travolta. Odd, right? But, he just, again, don't use your kids for content. And then you go and say something like $400,000 is being broke. You know how many people would kill for $400,000 a year? And it's not, there's a motivational gimmick in that type of conversation where he offers nothing of value besides to make you feel like crap. And then you will work harder to get to $400,000, which is apparently being broke. It's very gimmicky. It's very, it's slimy car salesman-ish,
That's what Andy Elliott is, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. The Diary of a CEO, right? Podcast, Stephen Bartlett. Loved him, watched his stuff for years. All of a sudden in the last 12 months, he starts this big podcast company. I'm assuming he got a lot of VC backing because I don't know where a lot of this money came from. I can probably look into it. And then all of a sudden he has the most unhinged guests on his podcast.
Yeah.
And it used to be a podcast about business, about the psychology behind business. And look, great. You want to explore certain topics, but it's morphed into a manosphere podcast. It's the guests that he has on, are talking about the most unhinged things. And then he had a 4-women panel talking about women's health and specifically picked the guests that would disagree with one another and try to discredit one another as women in their scientific fields. What are you're doing all of that for engagement?
Yeah.
That's the game, right? You're doing all of it for engagement. You're providing nothing of value anymore. You're just chasing the next paycheck. And great, I guess that's the game for everybody. But at some point, we talked about this in our podcast when we talked about the AI, driving, the AI stuff that they're installing in cars starting next year, supposedly, right? The AI tracking of your facial movement and your eyes, being on the road and all that. Where is your ethical responsibility that you're going to market this product, that you're going to talk about this product, that you're going to bring a guest that is spewing harmful information on your podcast, that you're going to be Gary Vee screaming into the microphone about how you're so frustrated because some Joe Schmo somewhere is not listening to your hustle bro advice.
Mm-hmm.
It's so icky, Mike. It's gotten so gross. I don't know. That's my
Yeah, they're all.
that's my summary of it.
What it takes to get popular is different than what it takes to stay popular. So that's why they will always change. And you see this everywhere because there's always a cycle to the internet fame where you'll rise, you'll stay popular for a little bit, and then people get sick of you, and then you're not popular anymore, and it will go away. It goes away for everybody, unless they have to pivot and try to find different things. And what can I do to stay relevant? So that's why they'll change up for this. And what tends to happen is they'll lean into that engagement thing because that's what works. So, when they're like, well, my last podcast got 10 million views, this one got 8, we're in trouble. We're down 20%, where you're like 8 million views is still pretty impressive. They don't see it that way. They see I'm down 20%. So they're like, what am I going to do? I gotta get that back up. This is scary. And which is right. Cause from a business standpoint too, if I had a $10 million month and then the next month I was at $8 million, I am concerned. Like,
right.
We still made $8 million, but hey, what happened? Is this a trend or is next month going to be 6? So you are concerned,
Right.
But that's why you see, and I call it's the Springerization of people's content. Because if you remember, daytime talk shows all got crazier and crazier, right? Jerry Springer, Maury Povich.
Maury Povich now has a podcast of his own where he just had Ricky Lake on, and they just talked about that, like how insane the daytime talk shows were in the 90s and early 2000s.
Well, because you start doing stories at first, and there are crazy folks out there, you could bring them in, but then after a bit, you're going to run out of those people, and everyone's kind of bored of the love triangle. You better start getting in a love pentagon in here, or love hexagons, or dodecahedrons, or whatever, right? Nobody cares. Oh, she's got 2 guys who are in love with her. Boring. Right. Saw that last week, Yeah. So they got crazier and crazier, and then the people on the shows recognize too their role. And a lot of those shows, those were casted, they were actors. None of the stories weren't real.
They were paid folks. Yeah.
They were paid folks, right? Where, how is it they all know to run off the stage on Maury, right? I'm going to go to this place and, leave me alone. It was crazy. But now on social, Caleb, the finance kid, is the one I always point to for this, because there's a very obvious case of it happening with him. The one who gives financial advice and he sits down and does budgets with people. At first it was helpful, and that kid, I kind of like him. I'm sorry if that's offensive. I don't know how old he is. I'm sure he's not a kid. He's a kid to me because I'm old, but I don't mean to belittle him. I think he's very smart. And I've heard him say some things that you're like, he has a good handle on things, right? But I think he's gotten it too. And I think he has some backing. There's some financial backing behind that podcast too. And once that happens, you lose creative control. You bring in partners, you bring in financial backing, you lose creative control. And now it's going to be about the numbers and what are you going to do next week? Great. Are you growing? You better grow. You got to grow at 5%. So his show has gotten more and more crazy too, where you're like, what is the point of, you don't even want to watch it for him to yell at some idiot, that guy's a moron. And you yelling at him doesn't do him any good. He's not going to change.
It's not going to help anybody.
So what are you doing? Yeah, you're doing it for content because this clip is going to go viral on TikTok. It's not about helping anyone anymore. Now you're just berating people. So it happens to all of them, they disappear.
Strange. Right. It's so strange. There's a few, I'm not a mentioning financial guys, Dave Ramsey, right? Dave Ramsey has stuck to a consistent content for a very long time. I hate the guy. Like, I don't, zero respect for Dave Ramsey. But it's interesting because his videos come up a lot on YouTube, right? So they're very, even though I don't ever engage, like, comment on anything, they continue to come up. There's a high volume of engagement on his videos. And to his credit, he has stuck to the format, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is pretty true to the format. I mean, like, most of the stuff that I think he talks about is completely ridiculous and also like out of touch. But I think Dave Ramsey has been out of touch for his entire existence in the financial space.
He is, though. So if you think about Dave Ramsey, difference between him and some of the other guys. So Dave Ramsey, what was the woman financial? Oh, I can't think of her name. Yeah, her.
That one, Susie Orman. Mm-hmm.
Susie Orman. And then there's another like radio. So the Kim Commando, like an old, like tech lady. They're old radio people. So it was different.
Right.
So they find
That's
a format
true.
and it worked in radio. So they kept with it. So they weren't influenced by the ups and downs of social media. Right. So that's why they just are what they are. And like, hey, this is what I've been doing.
Right.
And it works.
And I mean, and I don't, again, not a fan, but his podcast is one where I see that it's consistent in format at all times. There's obviously not my preferred financial advice person, but to say the least. But there's very few podcasts as of late that I feel like have stuck to their format, or these personal brand influencers. Like I've said, like Tai Lopez, for example, love him or hate him, right? He has done the same stuff for the last 15 years, right? Here's my Lamborghini in my garage. Here's my rented, Hollywood mansion where I'm going to host parties, where I'm going to sell courses to people who are going to take my courses and white label them and sell them to other people, right? He is known for his 67 steps in marketing for social media that came out literally 15, maybe even more than 15 years ago. He talks about his farm life and farming and healthy eating. He talks about women and parades women around and guess their nationality kind of thing. And then he sells his courses. He very blatantly sells his courses. There's 16 different variations of his 67 steps. And he has kind of stuck to, I don't think he's gone the outrageous path, right? It's been the consistent content with him since he started. But watching Gary, watching Cardone, watching, and I know somebody somewhere, if they see this podcast, are going to be like, why are you only talking about male influencer or whatever guys, whatever they are. I don't even think Gary's an influencer. Brands, right? Personal brand guys. These are the guys that everybody looks to, everybody knows who they are.
Okay, I'll add a female that I cannot stand, and I think she just says outrageous stuff on purpose, is Layla Hormozy.
Yeah.
I like Alex. I think, and I wouldn't even say I like Alex. I think he's fine. I've seen him say some good stuff, and I've seen him say some stuff. I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that, man. But Layla is she's the one who's if you come here and you ask about work-life balance, you're not the right person for this place, and it's that kind of stuff. It's you're supposed to come to my companies and break yourself at my business to make me rich,
Yeah. It's interesting. There were a few influencers that have kind of, I think, in that business space, women like Shay Robe or something.
Oh,
Shay
gosh.
Something.
Yeah, wasn't she HR?
No,
I used to be connected to her on LinkedIn, actually.
Yeah, she was.
I was connected to her before she got famous.
Yeah, so she was the marketing person. And so she kind of pivoted in this where she really, and she was really smart about a lot of things, but then all of a sudden her content started pivoting into posting pictures of herself, almost like a travel level influencer, monetizing on her looks, right?
Instagram. She became kind of an Instagram model. Yeah.
Yeah. And then she was like, well, I don't understand why everybody's judging my looks. because that is what you're presenting. That is the brand you've pivoted to. That is the brand you've become, right? And the internet is going to internet, and as fast as they will bring you up, they will take you down.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we bring up, like, I bring up Gary and Cardone and, Ty Lopez, and there's not enough negativity that will take these men down. Nothing will put them in their place. Gary can go and say admiration is more important than money in your bank account, and everybody's going to be like, oh, Gary, that is so amazing. And for those people that were giving comments like, you're out of your freaking mind, like, you're so out of touch, what the heck are you talking about? Oh, well, those are just haters, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the concept. And nothing touches, like, you cannot touch Gary. And I'm not saying Gary needs to be canceled. I'm just saying that there's nothing negative. Like, there's an army of people that will come and back these people up, that will defend them to, like, no end. And I've never seen that before. And it doesn't happen as much with women. Women get, in that space will get torn down in a second. We've seen it over and over and over again with influencers, right? There's, her first 100K or whatever, that girl, Victoria, she is, she operates in a space of, she's a financial planner, and she gives financial advice, and has written a really great Financial Feminist, is her book. And she is a woman that is not model thin, and she will get destroyed on anything she posts. She doesn't even talk about, like, fashion, couture, none of it, right? She talks about finances, and the comments from both men and women will be flooded with how she's fat, she needs a nose job, she needs this or that. You're like, but you never see that. You won't ever see anybody tell Gary, man, you're balding. Like, what is, why are you, like, nobody will judge these guys on anything. They will defend them to no end. Like, Gary can do no wrong. It is just the strangest thing to me. And I feel like it's given room for people.
I think Gary deletes negative comments, actually.
I think he's deleted one of mine before.
Mm-hmm.
But
they deleted one of mine, and I wasn't even negative. I made a comment on a video of his because I hate that wool hat, that affectation when he talked to a stylist, and then he started wearing a hat, and then he does the front tuck of his shirt, and the hat's kind of, he's like, oh man, he's so cool. Everybody, look at this young guy out here. I'm just vibing with everybody out here, and I just hate that. And I said something about, like, everybody's got the indoor wool hat on. This is a serious talk today, and they deleted that. So
yeah.
That's why too.
It's just interesting. Like,
I think they delete comments, and then Neil Patel, another one, a big influencer. I think he deletes comments. And then he's got people all over his social. If you comment on Neil Patel's stuff anywhere, you will get DM'd immediately with a sales pitch.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's another thing too. People got to realize, once these guys get to a certain size, they're not running their social media.
No, of course not. Yeah.
It's
just strange. I think, to me, like, the biggest PSA out of this is kind of why we're talking about this, because it's just it's just an interesting topic. Take everybody's advice with a grain of salt, right? Like, there's some good stuff that you can get from any one of these guys, right? Like, from Gary, from Cardone, from, whoever, right? Alex Hermosi, Layla Hermosi, like, whoever, right? They will make some good points, but don't take so many people, just take everything at face value and don't question anything. It's easy. I'm still stuck on this because it's making me freaking mad. It's easy for Gary to say admiration means more than zeros in your bank account.
Yeah, of course.
It's easy for Gary, who hasn't had to worry about paying his rent most of his adult life, that he wants to. So to me, it's like signaling, like, I want to be admired. I've made enough money. I don't care how much money is in my bank account. Now I want people to admire me. It's not like purpose is more important than money. It's not like serving others is more important than money. Admiration? What a weird freaking thing to say.
Right. I mean, it's a version of money can't make you happy, because he talks about that too in some of his videos. He's like, I know somebody making $45,000 a year who's thrilled to be able to coach his kid's softball team, and I have friends with $100 million in the bank who are just unhappy and don't get enough family time. Sure, I know. You know, I have had periods of my life where I had a little bit of money, and I have had more periods of my life where I don't. And let me tell you what was better. Having money was better.
But that's what
and I would like to get back to that point one day, you know.
It's such a weird, to me, it's such a weird, it's so out of touch, Mike. All of them have become so out of touch. And none of them, again, I don't think any of them have come from money, right? Like from some huge amounts of money. You know, it's not like, you know, it's such a strange pivot and such like odds. There's just saying really weird stuff, but they do have such a great following, and people who are just now discovering them, who are young adults that are going to take, you know, with very minimal career experience, very minimal life experience, who are going to take things that Gary is saying at face value and run with it. Right? Like, where is your responsibility to not make somebody to say like, or Grant Cardone, $400,000 is being broke. $400,000 to a normal person is life-changing. You know, like, and when you say like, if you're not making $400,000, you can make it just by showing up. You're basically telling somebody you're completely inadequate to do anything because you're not worth this amount of money a year. It's an odd psychological thing that I think
most of them now too. They're at a stage, and I have done this. I grew a company to $100 million. I grew an e-commerce company to $100 million. One of the most well-known military-owned brands in the U.S. And it's not anymore. It's faded some from there. But when I was the CMO and a partner there, we were one of the most well-known, and I think at the time the biggest veteran-owned apparel brand anyway. Not the biggest veteran-owned business, because I think what's his name at FedEx was still alive, and he's a veteran. But nobody knows who I am, right? And I tell people now, I'm like, that wouldn't work today. So you want to ask me how that grew, how we did it? It was right time and right place, and the right decisions for that time of the market, the audience, the people. You can't do it today. You have to pivot. It's always going to be something different. So I always say that about Gary and stuff, where it's like, could you do it today, Gary? Can you replicate this? And now because Gary's like, I could go start from scratch today and have 1 million followers in a day. Yes, because you're still Gary V. You know, because I know he started a new account too, right? Last year, in the last couple of years, he started some new account to do something. And he's like, look, see, it's not that hard. I'm like, you're still Gary V.
Right.
Nobody else though who follows your program.
Put in decades of work into this.
Who has followed Gary's program or Grant's, who now is rich?
Right.
And they're like, I did it because I did exactly what they said. It won't work out that way. That's why they sell courses on it now. They don't still do it. So. All right.
But that's the interesting part, right? Like, you can't start Wine Library now. Because when he did that and he built content around it, content was not a thing. There's 1 million influencers now, right? And everybody's doing content to promote their business. Like you said, Mike, like you can't, replicate. Anyway, that's our fun little rant.
All right, that's our rant, everybody. I don't even know.
We sprinkled in a little bit of cynical marketers in here today, Mike.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, if you were here, thank you.
Brain strategy viewers.
You won't watch the live really, but we'll be clipping this, and that's the intent.
Yeah, I was going to say, but we'll do clips.
Yep. So
that's what we do.
All right, everybody, we appreciate it. Thank you.